Those 2 pages. First 2. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So this one had 2 pages. This one's just 1 page.
Just need a minute. Get organized. Okay, are we ready to get started? Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Inspector Jennifer McKinnon of the Major Crimes Division. Today's release is an update to the widely reported incidents of anti-Semitic graffiti that has been spray painted on the various businesses and residential locations in a Charleswood community. Before I continue, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that information I'm about to share contains references to anti-Semitic messaging that may be distressing for some individuals. Please be mindful of your well-being and consider whether or not engaging with this content is appropriate for you. From September 28th to December 31st, the Major Crimes Unit Hate Crimes investigators have been actively investigating reports of graffiti that include anti-Semitic acronyms and symbols, including swastikas on various structures, objects, and fences within the Charleswood neighborhood. After an extensive investigation involving the Major Crimes investigators, working closely with the West District Community Support Unit, Manitoba Justice Public Safety investigators, and Manitoba prosecutions, a male suspect was positively identified. On Sunday, January 12th, investigators with the assistance of the Tactical Support Team took a 19-year-old male into custody without incident. In close consultation with Manitoba prosecutions, Nevin Thunder Young was charged with 26 counts of mischief under 5,000 and has been detained in custody. I understand that this information may result in more questions than answers at this time, and that the frustrations that come with it. However, this is an ongoing investigation. What I can say is there was no intent to target a specific individual or location. Although the offenses do not meet the specific criteria of the criminal code pertaining to hate crimes, the aggravating factors of this investigation will be provided and considered at sentencing. I want to emphasize the Winnipeg Police Service takes all hate-motivated incidents very seriously and considers the safety and security of our community to be our highest priority. We are committed to working with our community partners and remain steadfast in denouncing those that participate in such hateful acts. Hate-motivated crimes has no place in our community. We encourage you to report these incidents by calling 911 in a case of an emergency, our non-emergency line, 986-6222, or you can leave an anonymous tip on Winnipeg Crime Stoppers. I'd also like to take this time to thank the community at large for the information reaching out to us. I believe this was on Facebook. It was disseminated throughout our city, and that collaboration with the police service, making us aware of these incidents and that they're happening and that they're out there, allows us to facilitate a comprehensive investigation and get to the bottom of what's really happening in our city. So I will take some questions. Sorry, I'm a bit under the weather too, my voice here.
Why was it necessary to send the TAC team in to help with the arrest of a graffiti suspect, not generally considered a violent or dangerous person?
That's actually a very good question. However, when we were going to make an arrest of this individual, we were executing a search warrant as well on his residence. And as practice, when we're facilitating these types of arrests, we do engage the tactical support team for everybody's safety, including the person that we're going there to apprehend.
Can you talk a little bit, just about the criteria for an incident to be considered a hate crime?
A hate crime is any offense, and I'm going to read my notes because it's very important. Words matter. and I don't want to get this wrong. So by definition, a hate crime is any offense committed against a person or property which is motivated by the suspect's hate, prejudice, or bias against an identifiable group, color, race, religion, national, ethnic origin, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, and/or mental or physical disability. These offenses can include intimidation, harassment, physical force, or threat of physical force against a person, family, property, or supporter.
And you mentioned the investigation is ongoing.
Yes.
In terms of, I guess, what aspects we still looking at?
So I did indicate a moment ago that we did execute a search warrant on the residence. So we gathered evidence that we are going to have to now have a close look at. And I think there's larger questions to be answered.
What kind of evidence?
That pertains to the investigation, although I appreciate your question, but I'm unable to answer it.
Could you just clarify, Inspector, just why, again, I'm just struggling to process why this wasn't considered a hate crime, because wasn't it vandalism of a property motivated against a group?
Very good question. Mischief. Everyone who commits mischief in relation to property use for religious worship, educational institutions, property use for social, cultural, or sporting events, and seniors' residence. These were random locations. These were fences, call boxes, the community club on the side. They didn't fit the criteria. And I think it's very important to know that Manitoba Prosecutions takes these investigations incredibly seriously. And in my experience of being an inspector for the last year and a half, I've had the privilege of working with the Crown attorneys in regards to hate-motivated incidents, and been educated by them. They were in very close consultation with our investigators on this investigation, and this was the charges that were most appropriate. But you got to remember, the aggravating factors can now be presented at this person's sentencing, and we'll play into that.
Just want to follow up to that. I just want to ask about the community center in particular. It's my understanding that it was multiple times targeting that. Forgive me, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it, but would that not be considered more of like, not a random location if it was the same place multiple times?
So when I look at all these incidents in totality, I don't think Westdale Community Club is necessarily a target. I think it's a perimeter maybe of this person's world and where they reside and go about their day. So in totality of all the locations, unfortunately, Westdale Community Club just happens to be in close proximity.
And go ahead, sorry. I was just going to ask, I guess, what can you tell us about a motive? Like, why was he doing this?
And you know what, I this is where I talk about that this press conference probably motivates more frustration than answers. I think coming up here, I wanted to let Winnipeg know that we take this seriously and that we were on top of this, because it's been reported in the media and we can't come out and say we're doing that. To speak to this person's motivation is going to speak to our investigation. And I know that's probably the one answer that everybody who's watching this right now wants, and it's the answer that I can't give right now.
Did video surveillance help?
It did.
Ask about the graffiti itself.
Yeah.
Has anything been done to remove it from the property, or is it?
So I have to, I read an article today, thanks to Danny McKinnon, who put it to my attention from CBC. We have Angel out in the community who's been removing this graffiti. I know the commander of the West District Station, who's very responsive to the community out there and cares. He has taken steps to make sure this graffiti is removed. Any of the graffiti that has come through the regular reporting channels to the Winnipeg Police Service, our investigators would contact 311 and through the city ensure that it's removed. So I can't say that we haven't missed something, but I can tell you that this graffiti has been taken care of and will continue to do so anywhere in our city.
What has the police service, I guess, noticed in terms of any trends when it comes to or incidents like this that don't meet the criteria? Have you been getting more reports of incidents like this?
Yeah, I mean, graffiti isn't a new crime in our city, right? We drive around, we see graffiti everywhere. When we see this type of graffiti, it's incredibly concerning. It's tough because the criteria, the criminal code really ties our hands. So that's where the hate motivation piece comes into this. Do we see an influx of it? I think we can all agree since October 7th, 2023 now, it's been a long time, has had an impact on our city. I think it's had an impact on our nation. I think it's had an impact on the world. So initially we did see an increase in some of this stuff. However, I do believe it's settled down except for this incident, but this incident is contributed to one individual. I need to be clear though, it's unacceptable. Does that answer your question? Maybe, sort of. My apologies, I'm a bit under the weather today, so I'll take a number, maybe one or two questions, but if there isn't anything, I do want to pass it over to Constable Danny McKinnon. She does have another matter that she would like to report on for your attention. Is there anything else?
Okay. Thank you, Inspector McKinnon. Constable Danny McKinnon, WPS Public Information Officer. The second matter is an update to an animal cruelty investigation that we've recently released on. And as Inspector McKinnon did, just a bit of a cautionary statement. This deals with animal cruelty, some graphic information, so it may be disturbing. Please take care in listening to the rest of this press conference or reading the release online. The Major Crimes Unit has now identified an adult male believed to be involved in the recent reports of deceased cats that were located under the Summit Road Bridge throughout December. There was approximately 3 reports that the Major Crimes Unit took over. On January 10th, and at approximately 6:40 p.m., investigators arrested the suspect at his home without incident. Investigators learned that one suspect, had either lured the cats or made arrangements and acquired them through sale on social media platforms. Ultimately, the animals were injured and resulted in their deaths. All cats were then discarded under the bridge. This is in the very North St. James area, Summit Road Bridge. And a 24-year-old male from Winnipeg faces 3 charges of killing or injuring an animal. He was released on an undertaking. And, there's some notations here if you have any additional information or you wish to speak to an investigator involving any of these particular incidents or others. There's the direct contact phone number or anonymous tips through Crime Stoppers as usual. I think I will take a question, but before I do so, I anticipate a question will be, is this related to some of the Point Douglas similar scenarios that we had talked about? There was some deceased cats that were reported in the Point Douglas area. I believe it dated back to about September of 2024. And I would just like to preemptively say that although investigators are continuing to work on the Point Douglas reports that they have received, they have not established a link between this individual and those circumstances at this time. So I don't want to do any speculation, but those investigations are still ongoing, okay? So I figured that would be a question.
I just have one related to that.
Okay.
you mentioned that they're not related, but just like, is this a concerning trend that we keep seeing these sorts of crimes over and over again for you guys?
Well, we've reported on an awful lot of animal cruelty files, haven't we? And I feel like this is disturbing. It's odd for us to be reading them and releasing them, to write them. And I think for the investigators who deal with them, they are on the top of our minds. They're different files, though. That initial, there was a host of investigations that were released on that had to do with some internet procurement and injury and killings to animals. Those are different than these ones. Again, like our previous release, I can't speak to the motive on this situation. I do believe it's happenstance. I don't think that they're related, and I don't want to say there's a trend of animal killings going up. There is a trend in having access to online reporting and online comings and goings and untoward behaviors now, and police investigations dive into those. So maybe that speaks to it.
I'm just curious why there were 3 charges when the
Oh, yes.
original release said there were 6
Sure.
cats.
Yes. Okay. So at the end of the day, it's not determined how many cats were really there. I know I wrote the original release and I did say approximately 6, and it was undetermined how many, and now 3 have been confirmed.
And are you able to say where the suspect was arrested in the city? Or was it in the city, first of all?
Yes, it was in the city, and I won't release that, his residence within Winnipeg.
I don't want to get too graphic, but can you describe how these animals were being injured and killed?
Well, I'm not going to get into the details because that will be part of the court evidence package that will move forward, but let's just say they were tortured. They were tortured and they were killed, and it's absolutely reprehensible.
Just in terms of getting back to the question I just asked regarding his residence or where he lives, is the decision not to release it, does that hinge a little bit on the potential for vigilante acts?
No, he was released on an undertaking, and so he will not be named because his charges have not formally been laid in court. So that is the reason for no name there. And we don't always provide an address. There could be investigational reasons or somewhat protective reasons. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this person still has to have the charges formally laid and go to court. So
after some of the earlier incidents, we've seen a lot of posts online, information about suspects being shared, addresses, photos, and things like that. What would your message be, I guess, to anybody who decides to share that kind of stuff online or kind of leans towards that type of vigilantism?
well, it's a two-prong answer. The first thing is, I think there's been some very good value in the community groups in both of these investigations that we've talked about. Platforms such as Facebook. I know there's a big cat advocacy group. I'm sorry, I don't remember their title name, but they've been looking out for pets in the community. They've been cautioning owners, especially with cats, to keep them indoors, keep them leashed, get them licensed, get them tattooed. That's been very positive. So that messaging has hopefully helped community members bring awareness. In terms of identifying people they think are suspects, taking pictures, that sounds like those are potential pieces of evidence, or they could help investigators. So if we're putting out releases about this and you have some information, we always say any information, bring it forward. It's a tip. You can do it anonymously. You can call the major crimes line. You can call the non-emergency line. Yes, it circulates probably a little bit quicker on social media platforms, but that's not how we get our information. Yes, we look at social media, but that's not how we derive our investigative beginnings. We take them from actual police reports. So that's what I would urge the community. And of course, vigilantism would not be tolerated.
Any advice, this might be for that CAP organization, maybe somebody like the Humane Society, but any advice for anyone who is thinking about selling an animal, cat or a dog or otherwise, through social media, or giving away an animal for free via social media?
Well, that's a judgment call. That's not for me to say whether you should or you shouldn't. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of rules about selling animals online or giving away free kittens, for example, which I believe people have been doing for many, many years, and, not having to worry about it because they don't have to think about what happens next. So if you feel uncomfortable doing that, perhaps arrange to go through proper adoption. You can use the Humane Society, you can use animal services, and that may put your mind at ease. Any other questions? Thank you for joining us.
Any